Hello and welcome to another TCGplayer.com video. My name's Steve Rubin. Today we're going to be playing in a standard league, with a Temur Aetherworks deck. Recently we've seen a really big rise in the popularity of green-black, and I guess blue-white's been doing well as well. Those are like the two big decks right now. And kind of in response to the green-black doing so well, green-red has kind of become a dominant force on Magic Online. And I wanted to give it a spin, but I was thinking I saw some Bliss playing blue, and it was interesting to me because from what I hear on social media and people just talking about standard and whatnot, is that it's kind of like a situation where, sort of like a rock, paper, scissors, where the Temur deck beats green-black but gets crushed by blue-white. And I figured, the World of Virtuosos might be good at combating blue-white and stuff like that, and not to mention the counter spells help you in the mirror. So I think that it's possible, and actually not just think, but I'm pretty confident that the blue is the way to go right now. But I haven't played that much with it. But let's just jump into the deck tech. Basically, the green-red deck that many of you have probably seen. But let's just go over it card by card. We have 4 Ether Hubs. Excellent card. Fixes your mana. Gives you extra energy, helps you get those turn 4 marvels off. Like if I go Servant into Whirler or Servant into Wood Puzzle-Knot, this gives me the crucial 6 energy to get my Aetherworks Marvel off. 2 Botanical Sanctums. Basically, this version is playing 2 less forests than the normal version, and we're playing Botanical Sanctum instead, just to give us the blue for our blue cards. Cinderblade, different because we're playing that instead of Game Trail. Haven't had too many issues. We just have less. We have a lot less forests and mountains in this deck than the other decks, so you kind of are priced into playing Cinderblade. Evolving Wilds. Evolving Wilds is solid. We're playing more. Helps you get Delirium. Helps you cast your Emrakul sooner. Gives you energy off Marvel. Pretty solid, but I think you just have too few lands to fit that many tap lands in. 6 forests, 1 island, 4 mountains. Pretty straightforward there. We have the 1-drops. We have 4 tunes. Essentially, lands 23 through 26. 4 Vessel. This really is a Vessel of Nascency deck. The biggest difference between this deck and the deck that you saw Matt Nass top 8 Pro Tour Kaladesh with was the Pro Tour Kaladesh decks, after Marvel decks, were just a lot more all-in. This deck plays more Vessels, has Chandras and Ishkanas to fuel a hit, and also just milling your Vessels, like pretty much the most important card in the deck that's not Marvel, because it allows you to hardcast your Emrakuls and allows you to get Delirium. Very good. 4 Harness Lightnings, gotta kill Grimflare, gotta kill Copter. Also can just be a ritual of sorts for energy. You can just cast this on something and not gain any energy, or not use any energy, which is nice. Tormenting Voice, kind of a strange one-of, but a lot of the green-red decks play 2. We have all these Whirler Virtuosos. There's a lot of blue-whites, and part of the goal of the blue is to be better against blue-white. And blue-white has a lot of Revolutionary Rebuff and Spell Queller and stuff. So, and just a fast clock with Gideon. You can't really dirtle around and afford to get a card like this countered, or just take a turn off to draw 2 cards. It's not very good. 4 Servants, Mana Fixing, Ramp, gives you the turn 3 Marvels and Torch of Defiance, which is really nice. Lets you get under Spell Queller, lets you do everything you want. Just auto-include here. 3 Puzzle-Knots, kind of weird. Most of the green red decks play 4, and I actually like playing just 3 because you're like, oh, it's really good against the aggro, but aggro is not really what we're trying to beat right now. We're trying to beat Blue-White Flash. We're trying to beat green-black Delirium, we're trying to beat the mirror. And even against aggro, I have found that this card is not as good as you think, just because I've been playing a lot of red-black and had many games where my opponent has played 2 or 3 Puzzle-Knots and won anyway. And part of the reason is if I'm just playing Scrounger and PNLR, if you're just spending your turn gaining life, that doesn't catch you up on board, and I just, incrementally will have your aggro opponents just have more and more power in play, like with the Palas and Gideons and stuff. And just keeping on gaining life is nice, but it's really not as good as playing a Whirler Virtuoso that can block, can attack Gideon and stuff. And that's the biggest thing about this version, is we're playing the Whirler Virtuosos. Biggest problem card is Gideon, and Whirler Virtuoso not only blocks the Knights, helps you chump the Gideon itself, but helps you attack the Gideon. Whirler Virtuoso with 3 energy, with 6 energy, you can really do a number on Gideon. Can kind of late game Gives you another threat if you play against control, whereas normally you're playing Kha'Zix returns in the spot. And the other thing is it gives you more energy. This version of the deck has more energy because, like for example, if this was a green-red energy deck, one of the Virtuosos would be a Puzzle Knots, one of the Virtuosos would be a Tormenting Voice, and then two of the Virtuosos would be Kha'Zix returns. So we have 3 more ways of generating 3 energy, which essentially means we're going to have more games where we have turn 4 Marvel and can activate it. And we're going to just have more games where we just don't get energy starved. You know, sometimes you have you have to keep pretty much any hand with Marvel with this deck that is at least remotely playable, and sometimes you just won't get there on energy, especially if your opponent is playing like Spell Quellers, stuff like that. Transgress the Mind to keep you off of it. Whirler has impressed me a lot. I think it's pretty solid, and it's kind of like a more consistent, even though it makes your mana a little bit worse, it makes the deck run a little bit faster, a little bit more consistently. Aetherworks Marvel, this is the card, you know. We are using this to cheat out our big creatures, but if we don't hit them, you know, we have Virtuosos, we have Puzzle Knots to rebuy, we have Chandras and Ishkanas to buy us time. Chandra, this is like one of the big, Chandra and Ishkana are the big engines, like role players that aren't engine in the deck. Everything else, if you see, either digs or generates energy. Chandra kind of digs, but mostly what it does is, you know, it's removal / like mana. It gives you a Planeswalker, which gives you easier Delirium and makes your Emrakul cost 1 less. Like for example, you can get up to 7 types with Planeswalker. So Chandra is nice in that regard, and just adding new mana also helps you achieve Emrakul. So it's kind of a role player. It doesn't actually say energy or not the greatest hit off Marvel, but it's solid card. You can turn 3 it. Very good against control. Allows you to be very spell dense. Extremely good against green-black because they're trying to Grim Flayer you down and you know, remove your threats with cards like Lost Legacy. So pretty important staple there. 3 Ishkana. This, you know, biggest huge difference from the Pro Tour decks playing like Glass Puzzle Knot and Contingency Plan and stuff. You can actually play Magic with this deck. If you don't draw Marvel, you can actually win by just hard casting an Emrakul. And part of the reason is because you can kind of stop your opponent with Ishkana. And another card that, like, if you miss on your Marvel, you know, you only have 4 fatties, you're only 40% in a vacuum to hit one of them. You can hit an Ishkana, buy yourself time, stuff like that. And then the Ishkana spiders actually generate you energy on the way out. And you do have 4 Ether hubs and 4 servants, so you can drain people out. It doesn't happen very often, but it does happen. Split between Ulamog and Emrakul. This is a big difference here between this deck and the normal green-red deck, and I want to advocate it, and if you look over my article, I kind of go into detail why. But it obviously makes your deck a little bit less consistent because you're not hardcasting Emrakul as often. But I think across the board, Ulamog is better because hitting Ulamog off Marvel, not better, but it's better to have a split. Because hitting Ulamog off Marvel will win you many games where hitting Emrakul off Marvel won't. And if you want to read a bit more about that, I go a bit more in depth in my article. So go ahead and jump in there and see what I have to say about that. But I think it's against every single deck, it's a little bit better to have the split. Negates, Ceremonious Rejection, upside of being blue, this helps a lot in the mirror. At first, when I saw Whirler Virtuoso, I'm like, well, that's not good enough just to splash. Like, it makes your mana worse. You know, it's not necessarily even that much better than Kha'Zix Return. But when you factor in getting Ceremonious Rejection and Negates, it's really huge. And during this event, you can maybe see how good it is when I play the mirror. It really turns the mirror sideways. Like Ceremonious Rejection, being able to counter the Marvels, being able to counter Emrakul is really nice. Negates, obviously strong. Have the Kha'Zix Returns in the sideboard. You know, have to respect aggro a little bit. No big deal there. The biggest difference is we're not going to have up to 4 against the aggro decks. But there are a lot of games where Whirler Virtuoso is better and generates you energy and can deal with cards that Kha'Zix Return can't, potentially. So not really that big of a deal, but needs to have some of those in the 75. 2 tiers of Allocate. Just try to be able to kill Spell Quellers. Try to kill Avacyn's. Try not to fall behind in the blue-white matchup. Natural State, just for killing Copters and Stasis Snares, stuff like that. Mostly against the pretty aggressive Copter decks like blue-white or Mardu Vehicles, just because, you know, being able to kill their turn 2 Copter really slows them down and makes their draws more clunky. Tireless Tracker comes in a lot. Tireless Tracker actually is the card that, I'm not going to say it's more important than the Ceremonious Rejection than the Negates, but it's the card that I find to be very effective because what happens is your opponents will side out their removal against you, you know, cards like Grasp of Darkness will come out, and then you can just take over a game with Tireless Tracker. Helps you draw your Marvel, helps give you energy with the Marvel, because what happens a lot of times, you side out a lot of your energy producers. So Tireless Tracker is a nice way of, you know, getting energy slowly with the Marvel and also just drawing you into your threats. And this Renewal is a card I'm trying out. Most people have Dragon Master Outcast or an actual Nissa, but I found that I kind of want to just have more mana and buy time. Pretty good against Burn, and really good, I think, in the mirrors, because it allows you to hardcast Ulamog and hardcast Emrakul a lot sooner, which is nice. Just gonna try it out. Not sure if it's great, but we'll, you know, we'll have to see. It's a reasonable Marvel hit early when your hand is just fatties. I think it's good when your hand is bad, which is really helpful. Worldbreaker, really nice. Might want another one, but it's very good in the mirror. Very good against control. Just pretty solid. Like, lets you deal with Marvel, which is nice. Lets you blow up lands, which is super nice. Just does all around good stuff. Emrakul, this comes in a lot because it gets grindy post board, but the extra Emrakul just makes your Marvels more powerful, and it's just another threat. Like if we're playing against Pick the Brain or something like that, Emrakul is pretty nice. So that's the deck. Hopefully you guys tune in for the games. Are some pretty good. I did this deck tech after I did the event, so there should be some reasonable games for you guys to watch. But thank you for tuning in. I appreciate you guys viewing my content, and enjoy the daily or the league. So, those of you that follow me know I say daily so much, and I can't quite shake it. But enjoy the league. There we go.